All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this quick and important press conference today on HB 3979. As many of you all know, this is a very contentious and potentially very harmful bill that's passing through the Texas State Senate right now. There have been some questions about who will be impacted by this bill, and that's what the folks who are on this call today are really here to talk about. We have folks represented from the student perspective, we have teachers, superintendents, and the business community all on this call to say a little bit about how they believe that this bill will affect their ability to learn, do their job, and how this is going to affect our business community as well. So thank you so much for joining us. I'll go ahead and introduce who we have on the call here. First, we have Jahziel Leduna. She's a student. We also have Miss Candace Hunter, who's a former social studies teacher and a lifelong educator. Thanks. We also have two superintendents on the call today, Mr. Michael Hinojosa from Dallas ISD and Miss Jeannie Stone from Richardson ISD. And we also have Miss Charlene Stark here from the North Texas Commission, representing many business communities across the state who are in opposition to this bill. So thank you all very much for joining us. And just so folks know a little bit about the structure that we plan to have for this event, each of our speakers will have a few minutes to speak from their perspective about how 3979 will impact them. And then we'll be able to move into questions from reporters after that. Please, if you're a reporter and you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. I'll be keeping an eye on them, and we'll try to get to as many questions as we can in this half hour. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. And we're gonna go ahead and move right in with Miss Candace Hunter. If you could please, introduce yourself and let us know what you're thinking about this bill, how you're feeling about it, and how it will impact teachers all across the state.
Excellent, Araceli. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. As Araceli already said, my name is Candace Hunter, and I have been a social studies teacher because I'm still certified in the state from grade 6 through 12. And this bill has already impacted me as someone who no longer is in the classroom, but who still continually works with teachers every day. Teachers are given a mandate to educate, and that's what we do. We help in the formation of our students' critical thinking skills. We use the TLEEC, which is the basic curriculum standards for our state, and we supplement that checklist using research-based instructional tools, curriculum, and our own professional training as educators. This legislation is an impediment to that process. We are no longer solely focused with what is required for mastery and the success of our students, but we would be asked to divert time and energy to make sure that we've not mentioned or intimated or hinted at some part of this nebulous list of don'ts. We are professionals. In just a few days, we will close out what has been a crazy year, and under tremendous circumstances, we will end another school year. And we will ask that we be allowed to do what we've always done, and that is show our students how to think, not what to think. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hunter. Very powerful. We've seen so many teachers across the state, across the country, really step up and make sure our students are still receiving a quality education. And we hope to see that 3979 won't be an impediment to that. So thank you so much for that. We're gonna go ahead and keep chugging along. Ms. Stone, if you're ready to come off mute, say a little about yourself and a few comments about 3979.
Thank you. I'm pleased to be here with a student and teacher, some of my favorite folks. I am Jeannie Stone, and I am the superintendent of Richardson ISD. I'm a 30-plus year Texas school educator, and I'm here to lend my voice to opposition against House Bill 3979. While I believe that everything about this bill is wrong, I want to speak regarding the part of the bill that would impact teacher training. I speak on behalf of not only myself, but also the Texas School Alliance, our superintendent organization comprised of 43 of the largest school districts in the state of Texas. House Bill 3979 contains prohibitions that strip critical decisions not only from local school boards, but from principals and professional educators, teachers in the classroom alike. House Bill 3979 will impede the good work being done in districts who are working to close achievement gaps. House Bill 3979 misinterprets the intentions of those of us who are working to build more inclusive schools. And I speak for so many teachers who are very fearful that you are going to stop good work being done if this bill is passed. We've been deeply engaged in equity work in Richardson ISD for years, and I can tell you that our culture is changing. The work we're doing has only strengthened our understanding of our students and each other. It helps us to see and understand every student and every family, and there is nothing that is threatening or nefarious about any equity that's being done by any school district. It's done from a place of embracing and developing an appreciation of each and every student. I'm asking legislators to not assume that all diversity, equity, and inclusion work is partisan and anti-American. Many see it as vital for the positive growth in our students and their futures in America. This important work is about expanding opportunities for all students, not denying them, as this bill would ultimately do. To deny educators the tools to evolve and address how we interact and appreciate the students that we have in our classrooms today is to deny the fact that differences in attitudes and expectations exist. Please do not pass a bill that impedes the ability of all educators to do our most important job, to see every student and to build an America in which our students see themselves.
Thank you so much, Ms. Stone. I'm so moved hearing that. And I think, you know, I was a Texas student, public school student, not very long ago myself. And I can say that the changes that I've seen after schools implement diversity, equity, and inclusion work are so critical. And I'm so excited to hear that Richardson ISD and so many other ISDs are doing this work. And we hope that you'll be able to continue doing that work. As I understand, it's also costly work. So we hope that the legislature won't turn away from all the work and investment that's been done into our state through diversity, equity, and inclusion work. And I just want to say again, thank you to the members of the media who are joining us today. Please put any questions that you have for our speakers or in general about this bill in the chat, and we'll do our best to get to as many of them as we can. Thank you. And with superintendents in mind, we're going to move over to Mr. Michael Hinojosa, who's the superintendent for Dallas ISD. No stranger to testifying at the legislature. Great to have you here with us, Mr. Hinojosa. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. I'm Michael Hinojosa, superintendent of the Dallas Independent School District. And I speak in strong opposition to House Bill 3979 on behalf of myself, my school board, and the Texas Urban Council, which comprises the 10 largest, most urban districts in the state of Texas. Most of us, and in Dallas, I can speak that we passed a policy for racial equity by unanimous vote of our school board. We have developed strategies. We have moved resources to make sure that every student has a fair chance and that we are racially equitable. We've also adopted courses in Mexican American studies and Black studies. We have had many resources developed both internally and externally from our supporters in our philanthropic community to make sure that we accept and appreciate diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm very involved. We have 88 industry partners in Dallas ISD on PTEC. We have another 40 industry partners in our career institutes. So I'm in touch with the business and government communities. The city of Dallas also has an equity policy and practice that they have, and I'm very much involved with them. And we're all in opposition to this legislation. It's also disheartening on how it even occurred. It was posted for discussion, then it was taken down, and then all of a sudden the rules were suspended so they could hear it without even having appropriate feedback. The transparency, that is not transparency. And I would just say that for every action, there's an adverse reaction. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Hinojosa. And you bring up a really important point. the way that this bill has moved through the legislature felt very shameful. We had folks prepared to travel from all across Texas to give testimony on this bill on Monday. It was taken down. We thought it was going to be posted up later. And then it comes up very quickly without any advance warning, a suspension of the rules, and less than 45 minutes were dedicated to whoever could rush there from the Capitol. It left out students, teachers, community members, advocates, so many people who wanted to give their opinions on this bill. And we can see how it even begins to shut down our civic and democratic process, even as it's moving through the legislature. And that's the aim of this bill. So we see how harmful that is. We need these voices. So thank you so much for that. And perhaps maybe the most impacted group of people who will be impacted by this bill is here with us, Jahziel Leduna, who's a student. We're so happy to have you. Student voices are, of course, critical to have in these conversations, as you'll be the one in the classroom and you'll be the one who will feel less prepared ultimately if these things are taken out of the curriculum. So please, Jahziel, come off mute and let us know a little bit about what you're feeling.
Yes, hello. My name is Jahziel Leduna. I am a senior at a rural public high school here in Texas. I'm also a former member of Generation Citizens National Student Leadership Board. I am opposing House Bill 3979 as it restricts student participation in civics project. I was fortunate enough to attend a school that prioritizes civic knowledge and civic skills through projects. From 9th grade, I have been a part of a multitude of community-based hyper-local civics projects. These projects have a lab-based component that emphasizes on hands-on experiences in which creating a better community are implemented as its main agenda. Through this form of civic engagement, I learned leadership, how to cooperate with my peers, public speaking without getting really nervous. These type of projects gave me access to elected officials. They helped me learn our structure of local government, and it gave me a better understanding of how our democracy functions and how me and my classmates can provide a better change in our community. These projects were possible through teachers who were equipped to create a safe and supportive learning environment for all students. If this bill passes, districts and schools would not be allowed to offer credit for students who participate in similar civics projects, which would have a huge detrimental effect on their college application or their work resume if they are to pursue work as a government official or a career around that area. Teachers would also be restricted in discussing current events that help build relevant civic knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you, Jahziel. We can clearly see that public speaking and civics training at work today here. Congratulations on all the work that you've already done and that I'm sure you'll continue doing. Bringing in really important perspectives about a safe and supportive learning environment. These are things that all students need, regardless of their ideological background or the ideologies that they're going to form in schools. Bringing it back to what Ms. Hunter said, that we need to teach students how to think critically. It's never and will never be the position of our schools on what to teach, but rather showing students how to form their own opinions, how to get involved and do things like this. So thank you so much for bringing your perspective today. Thank you, members of the media. We see some questions popping up. We're almost getting there. We are going to hear now from Charlene Stark, who represents the North Texas Commission and also a business perspective here, because we know that this bill and everything that happens in our schools affects not just students and teachers, but our community and our state as a whole. So thank you so much, Ms. Stark, for being here with us.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. I'm Charlene Stark. I'm the Senior Advisor of Strategic and Legislative Initiatives for the North Texas Commission. The North Texas Commission, along with many chambers of commerce throughout the state, oppose this legislation. We are concerned about our current and future workforce. Texas needs more skilled workers, not less. To keep these workers and these students in the state after they complete their education, we need a more inclusive state. And to be a more inclusive state, we need more diversity and inclusion training, not less. We need to better understand the diversity that we have and understand the value this brings to our economy. This bill would restrict local control of school districts and restrict their ability to provide training to teachers and administrators. More training increases understanding. That's really key to what so many of these conversations are leading up to. We need to understand the diversity that is a fact in our state and understand various perspectives and encourage dialogue, not create fear of having conversations. We ask for all to reach out to their legislators, reinforce that this legislation is bad for Texas. It's bad for our economy, it's bad for business, and it's bad for our future workforce. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Stark. We know that these decisions being made at the legislature will have huge ramifications, oftentimes unintended consequences, and that we'll see reverberate from the schools through our communities and to the business community. So thank you so much for that really important message here. We're going to open it up for questions. And our first question is from Kate McGee at the Texas Tribune. So it's been mentioned that this bill might impact AP courses and syllabi approval by the College Board. Someone has mentioned this in testimony, and we're curious if anyone has any examples or more info about how this could affect students' access to college level work. So this is huge, right? Because this goes beyond just Texas, and it's about whether our students will be prepared to attend institutions of higher education outside of the state as well, which of course reflects really importantly on Texas as a state and our ability to prepare students for higher education anywhere that they want to go. So does anybody have any thoughts on this question?
As a student who is now going into college, I think college credit is really, really important. And if you're doing these civic projects for 4 years now, and if they don't count for my college credit, then all my hard work would go to waste. And again, college credit is important. It's good for your application and for your work resume. And if that is all being just put to waste, then if you were to pursue a career as a government official or around that area, then all your kind of experience in hours that you put in would go to waste. So that's what I think answer that question.
Thank you.
I'd say as a former teacher of advanced placement course many years ago, that at the heart of every course, every advanced placement course and every course should be a high level of critical thinking and conversation, just as Ms. Hunter, our teacher on the panel, suggested. So in any way to limit that or to hinder professional educators' ability to have that level of high level engagement with students is not in our students' best favor.
And I will speak as a former government teacher. In government, we encourage students to read primary sources from multiple perspectives. If this bill is passed, that will be washed out. You would be limited on what you can teach and how you can teach it. And so not only will it have an impact on advanced placement and international baccalaureate, it'll have significant impact on just about every course. And every teacher will be terrified that if someone is going to be recording them and turning them into the racial police, that is no way to operate. We need our students to understand from multiple perspectives, multiple.
Right. And I know that's something, as someone who took an AP course as well, those are things, critical thinking skills, being able to connect historical, real historical facts about what our country was founded upon and being able to connect that to our current things. Change over time essays, I still remember writing those. I know that speaks to some of the social studies teachers here on the call. And Ms. McGee will definitely follow up with you on the specifics of how this bill and AP classes, dual credit classes come into play. That's huge. And those are some of the unintended consequences that we think maybe these legislators aren't taking into account. So thank you so much for that question and those responses. Another question that came via the Facebook Live today. Hello to everyone who's with us on Facebook Live. Thank you for joining us. It's a question directed for our superintendents. Will you continue offering voluntary anti-racist and cultural proficiency professional development to teachers, campus administrators, and central office staff in your districts?
Let me speak first from Richardson ISD. So as Dr. Hinojosa referenced, our our district also has a policy that was adopted in June 2019 that lays out that part of my job responsibility as superintendent to be held accountable for ensuring that we are doing promotion for diversity, equity, and inclusion work. It's part of the job responsibility that I'm held accountable for. But in terms of the training that we're doing for our teachers, we have our teachers, and they are required to go through 3 hours each year of cultural competency training. It's a great training that was locally developed. It's about everyone having an understanding and an appreciation for all cultures. It is something that our school board expects that all of our teachers are required to do. But certainly, if this bill were to pass and we were not to be able to require that, I believe that we definitely would still offer it. And I believe that because it is so good and because it is so rewarding for teachers to grow in this aspect, so many of them want to grow in, that we would continue to not only offer it, we would have a lot of our teachers who would still participate.
Well, you ask a big question. And so I've already hired lawyers to help me interpret what I can and cannot do. I'm a rule follower. I follow the rule of law, but I don't know what that law is until it gets interpreted. And so we have to hire lawyers to tell us, yes, if it's voluntary, you can do this, but no, the letter of the law says such. So I'm already hiring and paying lawyers to help me figure out what we do with the professional development that we already have planned for this summer. And it also depends on when this law goes into effect. If it's not unanimous, then obviously be September 1. But we have courses that we would have to change on the high school master schedule right now and reshuffle teachers and all of those things. But we do follow the law. So it's going to be very interesting that a lot of lawyers are going to make a lot of money on this situation when we need to spend those resources on making sure that our students learn better and are more successful academically.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Hinojosa, for bringing it back again to the students. And I think that's really important when we're talking about why did this training for diversity, equity, and inclusion, why did this cultural competency training even ever come about? And it's about creating safe and supportive learning spaces for all students, for teachers to be able to see beyond whatever identities that student holds, whatever they're bringing into the classroom, to be able to see beyond it or capitalize on it even in order to assist that child in learning and being prepared. So those are the reasons why this training is so important, why so many people are required to attend it. And that's what this bill is stopping, essentially. It would no longer allow districts to require every single person who's going to be a part of that child's education, from the teacher to the superintendent, to participate in those trainings. And that's critical, right? That's huge. So thank you, Mr. Hinojosa and Ms. Stone, for bringing this to us. All right, monitoring the chat. Here we go. So we have a question here from Miss Talia Richmond. So speaking of lawyers, this might be directed to you, Mr. Hinojosa. Should this bill pass, do members of this group have plans to pursue legal action? I know that this has already sort of been out there. Mr. Hinojosa, if you want to answer that question.
Yeah, a lot depends on what happens, because it's not a done deal yet, but it's headed in that direction. And, you know, I don't have the authority to sue anybody. It has to be something that has to be taken to the school board. But I'm a former government teacher, you know. The executive branch enforces the laws. The legislative branch makes the laws, and then the judicial branch interprets the laws. And that's what allows you to have your say. The legislative body is making this law, but it is still subject to interpretation, and it can't be interpreted unless there is a challenge. I don't like to threaten behind a microphone or a TV camera, because I don't know what the final product is going to be. But I know there are a lot of people that are very passionate about this, and it's not just educators. We are jeopardizing future Super Bowls to come to the state of Texas. We are jeopardizing more businesses to relocate in Central Texas because, as so well described, they need a diverse workforce. People come to Texas because we have a diverse workforce. And if that is no longer welcome, we're going to be losing a lot of revenue to the state of Texas. And so I don't know who's going to challenge this, but I imagine it will be challenged. And of course, I have no authority. But then, of course, I can make the case be known and then have people direct me as to which way we should move forward. I don't want to threaten anything, but I know this is a very volatile topic for a lot of people.
Thank you, Ms. Hinojosa. And Ms. Stark, if you want to maybe build on the sort of business, financial, some of the effects that Mr. Hinojosa was talking about, please let us know.
Absolutely. One of the reasons why we've grown as a region is, and I can talk specifically about North Texas. This is true statewide, but North Texas specifically has had phenomenal growth, and the migration of talent and companies to the North Texas region and the state as a whole has been remarkable. You see the growth in the Austin area with Tesla and other corporations. Same thing has happened to North Texas. As we continue to see this type of legislation pass, unfortunately, it creates an image of Texas that I don't think we want. I think that most of us want Texas to be known as the friendly state, the welcoming state, that you can come here and be your authentic self. You can come here regardless of your background, because we embrace talent, we embrace hard workers. We are sending a really bad message to people in our state and people outside of our state when we have this type of legislation.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Stark. And I think that leads us perfectly into this next question from Beth Erickson with People Newspaper, who asks, this bill obviously impacts what teachers can teach, but how can this impact social emotional learning efforts? Because that gets right at the same question about how students feel these safe and supportive learning environments. And I see Ms. Hunter's off mute.
Yes, that's a really awesome question. And it's the ultimate question because kids are going to be impacted at the end of this. And I read a really great book by a guy here in Austin. The name of the book is called Elle's Mirror. And it's basically about what we're teaching our kids. Is it window, right? Or is it mirror? Are they being able to look through and see what happened to somebody else? What is available for somebody else? Or do they see themselves reflected, right? And I think that if anybody remembers the battles we had in social studies way back in 2010 and 11 about what would go into the TLEECs was hard fought, that we add more women, that we add more people of color. I don't know how many people understood that before that we were not teaching students that there was not only Paul Revere doing a midnight ride, but also there was a Black rider, right? Cheswell. And so I didn't learn that when I was in school, but because that was hard fought and won, we were able to do that. We don't want to go backwards in that. When we sit in front of kids, especially here in Austin, I've always taught in Title I schools, and I sit in front of children that don't look like everybody in our textbook. So everything that we can do to reflect their culture and reflect them, because it did happen. It did occur. You know, we just think about from border to border. We have, you know, Asians and we have Mexicans and we have, you know, Eastern Indians and Native Americans. They were here. They were here before a lot of other people. And so when I'm teaching, I want to be able to incorporate all of those. I don't want to be looking and saying, well, can't, because we talk about your culture, there were some bad things that happened. And well, that's going to create a problem for me. So I'm just not going to discuss it. That's not teaching.
Yeah,
and I want my kids to leave my US history classes saying, yes, that's us, not them.
That's critical. And I think that the main point that you're making is that we are not making the argument, this bill, nobody in Texas classrooms is making the argument that we should teach less, right? We are making the argument that we need to expand what really happened to show a more representative history and current social, you know, makeup of who we are as a country, right? I think that's the argument that we want to make, is we are not restricting any sort of learning. We want folks to have the broadest range of academic background and preparation as possible. And Jahziel, if you want to speak a little bit from a student perspective about the importance of social emotional learning and how this bill could impact that.
Yeah, definitely. I think as a Filipino American myself, I think there is a lot of culture and diversity here in the US, and just regarding that and just focusing on being safe is not going to work. As a student, I have a bunch of classmates who are from different countries who are very, very diverse, and America is a melting pot of cultures, and we need to realize that, and we need to learn that the history that this country has is deeply rooted and it's deeply diverse. And if you take that out, then what's left is nothing, right? And so I think we need to put more emphasis on that, and this bill will take all of that away. And it's very, very detrimental, especially for the students coming in, right? Having no background to based off of, they're basically gonna learn something new and something different that I didn't learn. So it's very, very important to put emphasis on the importance of students and the importance of diversifying learning experiences and lesson planning as well. So that's my opinion.
Thank you, Jahziel. And I saw Ms. Stone and Ms. Stark also come off mute. Ms. Stone, if you want to add to that and what you put in the chat.
No, I was just wanting to add that 2 important competencies for social emotional learning are social awareness and self-awareness. You know, we're focusing in on restorative practices at Richardson ISD for social emotional learning, which requires staff and students to focus on those 2 competencies and relationship skills in order to learn about others, to reduce harm to others, and to restore once harm has happened. And I think that all of that is so important to the role of education and educating the whole child, students like Jahziel. And I really want to make sure that we're keeping the focus on the whole purpose for this is about students. And to your point just a minute ago about whether or not this was going to require something legal, I still am hopeful today that our senators who are unaware, I believe there are a lot of legislators who are unaware of how this has happened. This is something that will critically change education moving forward. And yet our Senate Education Committee has not even heard it or talked about it, for it to go through the State Affairs Committee and then on to the Senate. For something that would be this big, this needs to take more time, more evaluation, and certainly more input from educators and those of us who are trying to do the good work that we're doing in the name of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Thank you so much. And we'll, before we get to our last question, we'll hear briefly from Ms. Stark as well on this issue. Thank you so much, Ms. Stone.
I just want to reinforce that our state and our country have gone through a lot in the last 18 months. You know, living through a pandemic, living through social unrest, living through what has happened with the Asian American community. The last thing we need is to create more fear and more hesitation to address what our students are experiencing on a very personal and painful level. I think that it's really critical, again, for us to all become more aware. I think if you look at the 6 of us, we represent Texas. We look different. We have different perspectives. I was someone who first learned of inequities as a junior high student with the ISD junior high, and saw students coming to my junior high from a different neighborhood. They had a lot of academic challenges, and I became very aware of that at 13 years old. This is something that we have to build more awareness, and to say that it is someone else's problem is taking away from the power that each of us have to make this state a better place to live.
Thank you so much, Ms. Stark. Of course, all of these issues are very personal. They affect everyone differently. We all carry different things into that. And what this bill does is negate our ability to recognize that in our classrooms across the state. And with that, we'll round it out with a final question that we got from Facebook. How can parents and community members support their school district's efforts to create both welcoming, safe spaces for students and empower teachers to teach critical thinking?
As a government teacher, you know, you always encourage people to use their voice in an appropriate way to bring up the inequities. And you have to do it legally and professionally and ethically. But you cannot be silent. When something is wrong, and you need to help us, you need to speak out and speak out in a very professional and appropriate manner.
Thank you, Mr. Hinojosa.
I would add on to not ignore the inequities, to not ignore them. If you think about the achievement gap that's been in our state and our country forever, we're working to close the achievement gaps, and there is a lot of disproportionate data that is there. Allow us to work on it and work with us, not in any way against us. And I believe that if communities will work with us and we can work together, we can make a difference for students, for the future of our state and country.
Right, and many times we're noticing that it's not necessarily a problem with students and their inability to achieve. It's often an opportunity gap. We're often looking at different resources and, again, different backgrounds, that if we continue to ignore why those differences exist, and we continue to shield our students or do what we think is shielding our students from those realities, we're ultimately just hurting everybody involved, right? Not every student in Texas will not benefit if this bill passes, right? This is detrimental to everyone, not just a certain group or groups of students. So with that, any final words from anybody else on, from a student perspective or a teacher perspective about just what we can do to stay involved?
I think this is a great opportunity to do what this bill purports to do, which is increase civic engagement. Any student, that is like, hey, I don't like this. It's a great opportunity for the parent to say, you know what? Here's what we get to do in the United States. We have the right to redress the government. It's a constitutional right. You can write a letter. You can send an email. They've made it so easy now. There's a thing called resist bot. I mean, you just text the number and they send a note saying, I don't like this. What a great way to engage. I know that I've engaged both my 18-year-old and my 12-year-old as they see me working and they're, why are you going to the Capitol? Because I'm going to try to lobby for this. Get them involved. This does exactly what this bill purports to do, but in essence does the opposite of. So if you have a chance, parents, you have a chance, so do it. Encourage your child to start now. If they're 6 years old, if they're 7 years old, tell them on their level, right? So they can say, this is not gonna help everybody, so this is what we can do. You can draw a picture to say what it's like when people are treated badly because of the color of their skin or the language that they speak. Get them involved in civic education. You're their parent, you're their first teacher. When I get them, I'm gonna do my job. I think that we can work together, and that's what we should be having right now as a partnership.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hunter, and everyone who was a part of the call. Not to put all the pressure on the students in the room, but y'all, I hate to say y'all are the future, y'all are the right now. You're already taking initiative, you're already standing up against these really harmful bills. I just want to thank everybody for coming out. And I think it's a great idea for Ms. Stone to have Jahziel go ahead and round us out. So if you have, and I'll just add that if any of the reporters on the call have any follow-up interviews or questions, there are resources in the chat where you can follow up. If you want to take action and are wondering about those things, you can also find those links on our website. So Jahziel, thank you for joining us, everybody, and thanks for rounding us out.
Yes, I do agree with what Ms. Hunter said, that civic engagement and civic participation is important. And I can speak from my personal experiences, because from my 4 years as a high school student, I had and I have implemented a lot of change in my high school. For example, during lunch, we used to have styrofoam to use as our lunch trays, but that causes a lot of gas emissions. So instead we changed it to, we talked to our superintendent and we changed it to a much more biodegradable material. And just that simple effort and just that simple coalition with me and my classmates changes a lot. And again, as parents, I think parents are your first teachers. And I think as parents, racial disparities does exist. And yes, it is still an occurring problem here in the US. And which is why as a parent, you should be able to have that conversation with your student, with your children, that yes, it exists. And that's why that's why schools should be able to teach students the reasons and the importance and the implications of what that is going to happen to us. Because again, like y'all said, we are the future, and it's important that we have the resources, the educational resources, to learn and to have these sort of critical learning and just a more engaging civic education and a much more kind of, for the lack of a better word, awareness of current events. And that's why teachers and parents and other community members should help us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good one.